Coming up on today's episode of the Real Lives podcast.
When I was serving my second prison sentence, there was a point in there where I thought that was it. But I think the biggest achievement, and I guess the most unexpected achievement, was that I became Ocean Activist of the Year 2023. My name's David Haze, also known as the Nomadic Paddler. So I'm actually a former prisoner turned multiple world record holding stand-up paddleboarder. But I thought, you know what, when I come out, I'm going to attempt to paddleboard the 4 of the longest lakes in the UK and set 4 world records. I didn't really sleep those 210 kilometres, and they said we won't allow you because the risk of death. I'd say 95% of people in prison didn't just wake up to commit a crime. There's a leading factor to get there. There are some horrible scumbags, don't get me wrong, and I've met a few of them. And I remember from court to the prison, I was just crying in the back. The moment I got out of the prison van, I had to wipe the tears. I just said to myself, like, you've got to man up now. Don't show any fear, don't show anything.
On today's episode of the podcast, I have on paddleboarder, adventurer, explorer, and former prisoner, David Haze. Now, David has one of the most incredible stories I've come across in my time of podcasting. He has gone from, a big job in London to a life of crime, which led him to prison, to then finding paddleboarding, his true passion, and seeking out world records, and now being the most decorated paddleboarder in the world as it stands. And in this episode, we talk about his time in prison, some of the things he saw, what he went through while he was in there, what led him to prison, why he made the decisions he did, which ended up with him in prison. We also talk about paddleboarding and how he got into it and why he got into it, and some of his biggest challenges he's done, like circumnavigating the Isle of Wight and on a completely carbon neutral expedition, which no one has ever done before, which is one of the craziest things, because when you think about it, you think, oh, surely that's got to be easy. No, this thing took so much planning, so much time, and so much effort, and to be the first person to have ever done a carbon neutral expedition is crazy. We also get into a multitude of other things amongst all of that, so make sure you listen to the full episode for that. But yeah, I'm back after a month. Decided to take a month off because I absolutely needed it. I just moved house. And yeah, I was burnt out basically. So I decided to take myself back and go from the beginning. And yeah, so this episode was filmed at the end of March at the International Outdoor Expo, where David invited me down to come and interview him. And it was really fun, really enjoyed it. So I hope you enjoy this episode. Make sure you like, subscribe, share the podcast, and you can also find all of David's links down in the description below. So make sure you go follow him, support him, and have a look at all the challenges that he's up to over the next year, as he has a hell of a lot that's coming up. So enjoy that and enjoy this episode. David, thanks for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it. And I'll start the same way I do with everyone, and that's tell us who you are and what you do.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me first. So my name's David Haze, also known as the Nomadic Paddler. So I'm actually a former prisoner turned multiple world record holding stand-up paddleboarder. And last year I was nominated Ocean Activist of the Year, International Supman of the Year, and my film has just recently won Best Sup Film at an international film festival.
Crazy. But the bit I'm fascinated about there is former prisoner.
Yeah.
Into what you do now. And, from what I've heard, you've had a pretty crazy life so far in terms of, spending that time in prison, 2 prison sentences and stuff. So rather than going into the paddleboarding and stuff straight away, we'll go into sort of your background and what sort of led you to prison.
Yeah, so growing up, I went to a military school. So adventure's always been a big part of my life. I've always loved the great outdoors. And then I went to university, then I moved to London and I started becoming a Forex trader. So I started working in finance, and I sort of lost my soul really, and I lost all the adventure that I was doing, which was part of my identity. And after I lost my job, I sort of took a really bad turn. I ended up going to drugs and ended up going to gambling, and which then led to 2 prison sentences.
Crazy. So what was it so you said you lost your job and that was the beginning of the spiral.
Yeah.
So what was it that led you to lose your job? Was it just circumstantial?
No, growing up, my father died before I was born, and I went to boarding school. And I think most of my life I've just been used to being on my own and achieving things for myself. So I've never really had to deal with failure. And that time that I lost my job in London was probably the first biggest failure I ever had to deal with. And I don't think I had the tools deal with failure, and I didn't know. Well, I didn't have the tools clearly, but I didn't know how to deal with what I'm going through. And I lost the job. Basically, I was earning money for the company, but I got too big for my boots, and I fell out with my manager, and I lost it. And I was just too proud to ask for help and go and speak to people. And it turns out asking for help would have been, such an easy option, but I just didn't see that as an option, and I turned to the gambling, and everything just spiraled from there.
So when you say you turned to gambling, I'm guessing you were betting a lot of money to try and win it back, and obviously it didn't work out quite that way.
Yeah, no, I had some good days, but there was more worse days than good, and I was using a lot of cocaine at the same time to try and numb the pain that I was going through. And then I moved some stolen goods, and I was meant to go to court, and in that year I got another job, and in that year I kept everything to myself, and I didn't tell anybody. And when that court date came, I just had some sort of mental breakdown and then just disappeared for 5 weeks, tried to take my life twice, and was just like an empty vessel roaming the earth, really. I just didn't know what to do. And in those 5 weeks, I turned to more serious crime, which led to the prison sentence.
So why didn't you tell anyone in the year? Well, because obviously you could have sought some form of help from family or whoever, but what was it that led you to keep it a secret?
I think I was just too proud to ask for help. I think, I'd done everything on my own. I thought I could turn it around, but I spiraled into such a hole that it was too late, in my mind, to get out of that hole. And in that year, I was meant to go to court. I got another job. I ended up being a business development director for a finance firm. And part of me was thinking life's great, life's fine. But I had the phone call every week from the police officer saying, you're going to jail. And it just broke me. But I should have asked for help, but I was just too proud to.
Mm. And then going on the run for 5 weeks, what in that time period, what was it you were doing daily? Like, were you constantly moving around trying to avoid being arrested? And what did you feel the outcome was going to be if you were doing that?
Well, in the first few days, I tried to take my life twice and I failed. And it was just all a bit of a blur. I was just sleeping homeless. I ended up sleeping in a couple of hostels, and I just didn't really know what the outcome was going to be. In my mind, even though it had been 5 weeks, I just wrote everybody off. I thought everybody wrote me off and sort of moved on. It was only 5 weeks, but obviously that wasn't the case. And if I was successful and took my life, then my family, my friends, they would never get over that, especially my mum. She would never get over that, and it would probably break her. And I'm glad that I did get caught, and I'm glad I managed to sort everything out in the end.
Yes, because as we say, you have to get to your lowest point to be able to realize who you are and what you want to be. But when you went to prison, that first day, what was that like for you?
It was the most petrifying thing I've ever experienced in my life. I remember the police officers who were dealing with me said, expect the worst, but it's not going to be that bad. And I remember from court to the prison, I was just crying in the back. The moment I got out of the prison van, I had to wipe the tears. I just said to myself, like, you've got to man up now. Don't show any fear. Don't show anything. And, even though I was trying my best, I really stood out. I was like a lost sheep, really, or was it a lamb going to slaughter? And it was just the smells and the noise. That place was so overwhelming. I couldn't describe the smell to you. And it was just a sensory overload. And it was just you could just feel the toxic environment in the air. And it was absolutely horrible. Like, you're not really treated as a human anymore. And it's weird. I've gone back into prison now to give talks. And I remember speaking to a prison officer who I met when I was a prisoner. And the weirdest thing is the way he spoke to me this time. I was like, I haven't changed a single bit as a human being. So why are you talking to me differently now that I'm a free man and when I'm not? I think everybody going, yeah, you've done something wrong and your freedom's taken away, but you should still be spoken to with respect. If they want respect, they should speak to us for respect as well.
It is an interesting system, and I do wonder what we can change to make it better, because like there's a very high percentage of prisoners are reoffenders.
75%.
Yeah. And clearly the system doesn't work, and the system hasn't worked. And I don't think it's worked at any point.
No.
So in your opinion, what can be done to help with reform and
I think whilst they're in prison, I don't think the government are really interested to help. I've done, so I've worked as a freelance consultant for the criminal justice system to do reports around mental health. And the report went to some very influential people. And it was just a tick boxing exercise. And I don't think they're going to be able to do anything whilst in prison. You can help the guys and girls inside, outside organisations, but I think you need to get them before and get them after. And obviously, if you want to rehabilitate, you can't rely on other people. It's all down to you to rehabilitate. What I've always said, I think one of the biggest things, as somebody who's in prison, you're not allowed to vote. Despite government are allowed to make decisions about you whilst you're in prison. So there's 88,000 people roughly in prison. If you suddenly gave all those people voting rights, then I think the government will start to take rehabilitation more seriously. I think, well, suddenly I've got 88,000 extra votes here. If I can get these people to vote for me by saying that we're going to do this to help prison reform and this, and this, then they can get more votes. And I think that's when we'll start seeing a change. But until they give us the rights, then I don't think it'll happen.
We say, don't we, like, because I've spoken to a lot of former addicts and stuff, and you have to want to change yourself before you can change. And it's like similar to mental health. If you're in a downward spiral with depression, you can't change unless you're willing to change and make those sacrifices to get to where you want to be. And with prisoners, there is that element, but also if there's not the resources in place, they're at an even bigger disadvantage because they don't have access to a lot. Like there are courses and stuff in prisons, and that's great that they have them available, but a lot of these qualifications mean pretty much nothing when these people, a lot of them, it is a case of they've just made a mistake. Like you made a mistake because of circumstances and everything spiraling. But a lot of people aren't able to come out like you have and create a new life and create something that they want to live and build throughout the process. And I think there needs to be a change in a way where that's almost pushed a bit more. Yeah.
I've always been a go-getter, and I'm not one to sit around, and that's just worked well for me. But when I was doing this consultancy work, I remember my boss, Dr. Sarah Lewis of Penal Reform Solutions, she spoke to somebody in prison, and the way she was just speaking to them, she was just speaking to them normally, and I can't remember what she said. She said, I love you. It's like, I love you, do well, and all this. And the guy had been in prison for 11 times, he's been in care his whole life, and he was shocked. He's like, what did you say? And Sarah's like, I just love you. Look after yourself. And nobody's ever told him that. His whole life, he's been told that he's shit. He's just, he's a waste of space. And that's the way he's just looked at himself. And suddenly somebody's just been kind to him, given him a bit of hope. And he's like, oh, wow, I am more than that, actually. You're right. And he has gone on to do some, do good things. And I think it's just giving people hope, giving them a bit of love, and just helping them. It is ultimately our own decisions. We're the only one in control of our destiny. But if you give these people some hope and a helping hand, then we can see a difference. But I think we're relying on outside organisations, not the Ministry of Justice, to do that.
There's a lack of funding within everything in the UK at the minute, and it is pretty problematic, and it's probably only going to get worse.
Yeah.
But I don't understand why we're willing to throw these people away for years and years. For sometimes, they are genuine mistakes and not willing to help them, but then also make life harder for them when they get out. So like you said, were looking to go on the hunted and SES Who Dares wins, but because you were on license, you couldn't do that.
Yeah.
It's making, that could have been an opportunity for you that could have created something special down the line.
Yeah.
But you weren't allowed to do that because you're on license. But why should that affect your ability to just appear on a TV show?
And in certain jobs as well, people I've had a few opportunities, not that because of my criminal record, but certain jobs, but not jobs where it should matter. And I think if we want to create these harmonious environments and support people out, we need to do more. There are companies called the Ban the Box organisations. So their whole idea is they take the criminal record box off. So you apply for the job, you get the job, and then it's your job, once you've got the job, to tell them that you've got a criminal record, but you won't lose your job. There's certain things that obviously they won't accept. I think arson's one of them, and then obviously rape and child offences, they won't accept that, and probably murder. But most offences they are fine with if they've got it. But yeah, I think there still needs to be more to done, and I think the community as a whole need to be a bit more understanding as well. I'd say 95% of people in prison didn't just wake up to commit a crime. There was a leading factor to get there. There are some horrible scumbags, and don't get me wrong, and I've met a few of them. But I think if we can change the perspective, and that's part of what I'm trying to do, is just change the perspectives. Like, there's people who don't realise that Stephen Fry's been to jail, like David Dickinson. I bet there's some old grandmas at home that love Dickinson's Real Deal, not knowing at 35 he went and did 3 years in jail, and Stephen Fry went to jail. And there's people like Mark Wahlberg went to jail. Ant Middleton went to jail, and a lot of people don't realise this, but they've gone on to do good things. And at the end of the day, when these guys do come out of prison, they are going to be your next door neighbour. So what do you want? Do you want somebody that's changed, reformed, and rehabilitated, or do you want someone that's angry, hates the system and everyone around it? Like, I think it's obvious which one you want.
Yeah, and it's like that, exactly as you said. We were very quick to judge people, and like yourself, like I've spent the entire morning with you at the expo, and incredible personality. Like, having met you, you wouldn't have thought you'd been to prison, but as soon as you've told some people that you've been to prison, the way they hold themselves with you, the way they judge you, completely changes from the moment you've gone, oh, I've been to prison, and even though they've not given you a chance almost.
My plan is that I always try to give my story first before mentioning prison, what I've achieved, what I've done, get to know me. So get an image in your head, get to know me, and then I drop the prison. So hopefully we're like, oh, that's a shock, but like, actually you've done some good stuff, and I've met you, I know you sort of know you a bit, and then it sort of works from there. But I remember when I first came out, Lad Bible did an article on me, and all it was about was a man that's come out of prison, done some charity work. And a lot of people were really, really good, really kind in the comments. And the negative comments didn't bother me. But it's quite funny seeing the negative comments. Because the article literally was about a man that's rehabilitated himself, gone on to do charity work. And then he's got, he's a scumbag and all this. And I was like, what else do you want me to do? Like, do you want me to come out and be a horrible man and go and commit more crimes again? Or do you want me to come out and be an upstanding member of society and help others try and change their lives? Which one do you want?
Exactly. Like, people are so quick to say stuff about people who come out of prison, but it's like you're then adding to the stereotype. Yeah. And that's all you want them to be, is the stereotype. They come out, they reoffend, you go, oh, of course they did. But why are we not pushing people to go, you know what, go raise some money for charity, go get a job, or as simple as you got an apartment, that's great, he's actually rehabilitating. Because also what you don't want is to continue this stereotype and then your neighbour be the person who's reoffending, and they could be, for example, they could steal from you. And people, and I don't know, like, since starting this, I was probably used to be a little bit more judgmental. But since starting this and hearing so many different stories, like people who have been addicts, and it's just a case of circumstantial situation, they just have no control over what they've done. Like, there was one guy, Patrick Chester, a gambling addict, and he was he worked in consultancy, and so when the companies were giving him, say, 20, 25 grand, he was going betting that because he was in so much debt. He just didn't see a way out, and then it all came crashing down when obviously these companies realised what was happening, came together and went, he's stealing. And now the guy works in helping reform gambling addicts. And, but the guy is a genuinely nice guy. It's just because of a certain situation, he went down that path where now people judge him as like the horrible thief who took so much money from these companies and stuff.
But it is weird. And like, as I said to you earlier, so to get to the NEC where we are today, I had to paddleboard here. I didn't have to, but I decided to paddleboard here. And the day before I paddleboarded here, my car got broken into, and like all my stuff was stolen, like, my tech, my equipment. And obviously, as a victim, I was really pissed off and angry, but I've been the one that's created the problem before. And it was such a mixed emotion, to hang him out drive, I find him and all this. But at the same time, I sort of understand what I can imagine, knowing the area, I understand why he's done it. There is a drug problem and everything. And I was just saying, I've been speaking to people about it. And if I could find the individual, like there'd be no authorities involved. Like, let's get my equipment back. Like, just, say sorry for the inconvenience, and then I will work with that individual. Like, I won't get any authorities, won't get any trouble. I'll try and help them as much as I can to turn their life around. Like, I've done it, and I've been inside and come out the other end and done it. So if I could find them, it'd be great. And it's just, but if I'd never been to prison, so before prison and before I committed any of the crime, I was one of these people, throw away the key, they're scumbags. But actually being in there and seeing it, my whole world's changed. And even my mum was exactly the same. She was like me, they're all scumbags, throw away the key, came into the prison, saw how it was, and now she wants to work for prison charities to try and help, lads and women and all that to change their lives.
While I've got you, please could you like, subscribe, share the podcast, and leave a rating on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, as it really helps to grow the podcast and to reach new audiences. So I'd really appreciate that. And yeah, if you've now done that, enjoy the rest of the episode. I listened to a podcast the other day of a former police officer he was working in the police from, say, I think it was the 70s or the 80s. And he was discussing how he would pull over a drink driver. So they obviously hadn't crashed at this, but like it was before they had crashed or whatever. He'd just pulled them over, breathalyzed. He could tell they were over the limit. And he said he wouldn't breathalyze him because obviously once he's breathalyzed him, he knows for a fact. But what he would do he'd be like, take the keys out of the engine and hand me your keys. And he'd throw the keys down the drain and be like, walk home. Because he was saying, like, this person's just made a mistake. And he doesn't want to ruin their lives based on one mistake. So his thing was, I'm going to give them another chance so they can go, right, throw your keys down the drain, or I can breathalyze you, and we're going to go through that whole process. Yeah. And he said, obviously, no one took the breathalyzer route because they knew what they'd done and they knew they were wrong. So it's like, it's just giving people that opportunity. And, some case, like drink drivers, it's a terrible thing.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But I feel like we need more like that in society, where they're just willing to give people that chance because they recognise this is probably just a mistake in this case.
And it is, and I've seen all sorts, like men who haven't paid child maintenance because they look after their children the other way, but they don't pay it through the scheme and have gone into jail. I have generally seen people that shouldn't have been inside. And I also think that the majority of people outside probably don't realise but commit a crime in one way or another. National speed limit's 30 miles an hour. I can imagine quite a lot of people do 33, 34. That's committing a crime. You knock a cyclist off, you're probably going to jail. Someone walks on the road and you're doing 33 and a 30, you're going to jail. Like, there's all sorts. Not paying fines in time. Like, there's all these different things. And it's quite easy to end up in jail not realising what you're doing is wrong.
Yeah, it's quite scary. But I'm interested to hear your perspective so when you committed your first theft.
Yeah.
Because obviously growing up, when you, like, if you have a decent environment around you, you're told theft is wrong, shouldn't do it. But then because of the circumstances, obviously you spiraled. So knowing yourself that it's wrong and then making the choice to go and steal.
Yeah.
How did you balance that for yourself to in your head make sense that this was okay to do at the time?
I never really made sense it was okay. I just sort of blanked out. So the first offence I did was handling stolen goods. So I moved some gold, which I knew was stolen, but I was telling myself that it was a friend giving me gold, but I knew it wasn't. We got caught out for all of that. But then when it came to, so it's burglary was the crimes I committed. So when it came to the burglary, I was just a shell of a man. Like, I wasn't even, you wouldn't even recognize me. And I saw an opportunity and I sort of it just blanked it out. And like, still to this day, people ask me like, how did you feel? And I was like, I just went numb. I didn't feel anything. Like, I didn't, break in, ransack the houses or anything like that. But it's not an excuse, but I just went in and saw it. If I could see an opportunity, I took the opportunity and I went in. And I just generally don't know how I was feeling, but I have wrote to all my victims and I said to them, if you want to meet, happy to meet. And I said, let them know that I didn't target you as a person. It was like, this is what I saw and this is how I did it, just to let them know, like, just be aware. But yeah,
it's because it is interesting to hear how you rationalize those things, because I've never been in a position to even contemplate rationalizing it, but then actually doing it is far and beyond what I can imagine, because you know the consequences of it. And then I can only imagine the shame when you got arrested for it.
Yeah.
And you realize what was going to happen.
Yeah, it's got a girlfriend at the time as well, and then it's my mum and all that, and you're like, because like, so the moment I was arrested, I went to remand, which means you go straight into jail before you go to court, because they see you as a risk. So I didn't have the opportunity to sort of speak to anybody. I'm ringing them from a prison phone. They knew, but to actually hear it from me, I was ringing them from a prison phone inside. Ones that you pay for, not a mobile phone, obviously. Yeah, and it's just weird. Like, I went to answer a police bell, and then with some goods I had, and my mum didn't realise how serious it was. And she said, it's like you died, you're gone. And a year and a half later, you came back again. Like, you went, answered police bell, and that was it. You didn't come home.
How did it affect your family?
Really bad. Like, in the film that we released, there's an interview with my mum just saying she wasn't ashamed, because it was my shame, but actually visiting me was just awful. And it was hard. We broke, the family ties were broken, and I've had to rebuild them again. And I think what I'm doing now, she's really proud of me. I'm living the life that I've always wanted to live, and, it is good. And I think my stepmom still has doubts every now and again. But, I put them through a lot of pain, through a lot of suffering. But yeah, everything is good now with the family. Yeah. And my grandma's always going to be my grandma. She absolutely adores me. Yeah. Big shout out to grandma.
But while you're in prison as well, what were you getting up to on a daily basis? Obviously, gangs are very prevalent in prisons. Yeah. Navigating them, how were you going about that?
I remember, one of the first few days, the biggest, scariest man I've ever seen in my life came bowling over to me on the wing. And I thought, this is it, he's going to come and do something to me, and I'm going to be in debt to him. And he shoved a letter in front of my face. Like, he heard me speak on the wing. Apparently I'm the poshest man they've ever met. Because you think, these are South London people. I was in a South London jail. I'm a white man. And I just, I just pronounce my T's and all that. Yeah. And this guy came over, had a letter from his solicitor, and he was like, what's it say? And I was like, basically, you're buggered. And he was like, can you write a letter to him for me? And I was like, yeah, of course, I'll write the letter. So I wrote the letter and just put in his point of view. And he really thanked me. And then he told all his mates, like, David's a good guy. If you need help, he'll help you out. Suddenly, I'm writing letters to daughters and sons, mothers, and reading letters and helping all these guys out. And suddenly I've got a useful skill, and everybody knew that on the wing would come to me for help. And then as it progressed, so after in my second stint right at the end, I was trying to get companies to work for the prisoners. So I managed to get Sainsbury's to work for, to hire guys from out of prison, B&Q, the Body Shop. The prison even sent me out of the prison for a day to go and give a talk at a recruitment fair about the possibility to hire lads from prison who are at DCAT prison, which is an open prison. But thankfully, I never had any trouble in prison, but I have seen some horrible stuff that I wish that nobody would ever have to see. I've seen a man get murdered. I've seen a man hang himself. I've seen people getting stabbed. It's stuff that I don't wish upon anybody. But the weirdest thing, like when you see fights and when you get people, I see multiple people get stabbed. And the weirdest thing is how normal it is. It becomes normal in prison. Like, you hear commotion, you turn around and you see something happen, and suddenly there's blood everywhere, and it's shocking. That's another human being, but that's just prison life. And it's like, what do I do? I can't do anything.
You have to turn your head, because otherwise it's probably your life that's next.
Well, that's it. So when this man got murdered on the yard, I remember there was just there was a feel in the air. There was something happening, and you could see the three guys do it, and they went in, did it, and then they went back into the crowd, and I could point them out. But I've still got, another year and a bit to go in prison. And if I'm suddenly, as they would call it, snitching on these guys, then I got to look out for watch my back for the whole of my journey in prison, because it would probably happen to me.
Yeah, like the prison officer who said I'd had on previously, Jack Mason. So he doesn't work in the prison system anymore, but he does a lot of videos on TikTok answering questions and what have you. And when I spoke to him about his experience of working in the prison system, some of the stuff he saw, he said he had to pick a guy up who just hung himself, had to lift him and make sure he didn't choke. And one instance he said was, so a guy had I'm not sure if he'd done something wrong or it was like based on the type of offence he'd committed. These guys basically sugar and boiling water, launched it at him, just completely scalded him.
Yeah,
and
sugar, baby oil,
Yeah, and he said watching his skin sizzle and hearing that sound, he was like, that'll live with me forever. And there's nothing that will ever help remove that because I've had to witness that. And even like, not just for prisoners, but for prison officers as well. Some of the stuff you have to witness, no amount of therapy will probably ever help remove that for you.
No. I remember another story. I remember there's they call them foreign nationals. So let's just say he was Polish or something. He came over. His English was very broken. And I could basically work out he was trying to ring his family, his wife, to let him know where he was. And his communication wasn't great because obviously English isn't his language. And the prison officers weren't helping him. They were winding him up. He went into the prison cell, slit his wrist, really badly hurt himself. He didn't die. And there was blood everywhere. And then the prison officer came, joked about it. It's like, oh, he was an idiot. And I was like, you did that. You caused that. Like, the poor man needed to let his family know where he was. He's literally just been arrested, gone straight to jail. And all that could happen was you could have rang his wife. But it's like, no, you didn't help. Like, I've seen it many a times. Like, there are good prison officers, don't get me wrong. Like, I've had loads help me. But there are, like, I think they've just been in the system for too long and they're just broken individuals. And they call them dinosaurs. And they just think, again, they think just throw away the key and just be horrible to them. Like, I've had some that have been really, really horrible to me. And I've mentioned them in my book. Obviously, I've changed the name, but I really hope if they ever read the book that they would know, like, you did that. Like, that's how you were, and that's how I see you. And you weren't not the only. Luckily, I'm strong enough, like, to deal with the shit that you did to me. But there's people you probably end up turning to self-harm and all this. Like, it's just such a horrible place.
Do you think it's a result of the environment they're working in that leads them to be like that, or do you think it's a matter of almost external factors outside of work which cause them to come into work and this is their outlet?
I think it's a vicious cycle, to be honest with you. I think, you have all the shit at work, do all of that, you come home. All honesty, I wouldn't be surprised if they don't turn up to drink, like come home drinking every night, and suddenly neglects their family duties, and then they're getting angry at home, then they go back to work, and I think it's just a vicious cycle. Dr. Sarah Lewis did a report for a prison in the Isle of Wight that deals with child offences. And one of the prison officers there has heard so many stories from the inmates that he now never lets another man touch his baby. So he will never let his father, the grandfather, his baby, his child, never let his father touch the child.
Wow. Just
because he's sort of, what's the word? It's not conditioned. He's just so used to all this. Like, he just put him in this horrible place. And like, he knows that his dad, his own dad, the granddad's not going to do anything, but he would never ever, he just can't help. He's trying to get therapy to turn that around because he just can't help it.
Yeah. And I think it's a matter of, because when I spoke to Jack as well, he talked about the corruption within the prison system.
Yeah.
And, he said in some cases it was whether someone had gotten information about them that they didn't want releasing.
Yeah.
Which is, from within prison as well, the ability to get information is crazy.
Yeah.
But also it may be a case of they just don't earn enough money. And they need to get by. So when someone goes, I'll give you $1,000 if you bring this in the prison, they're going to do it. But then they're on the hook then.
That's it. That's exactly. Yeah, I was talking about this the other day. So they don't even earn much. I think basic wage is about 23,000. And so, suddenly somebody goes, oh, can you bring this in? They start their groom you. So suddenly you're quite chummy with this, this inmate. And you have a bit of banter with him. And then suddenly they drop the question, like, I know you're not great money, but if I give you $1,000, can you bring in X, Y, and Z? He's like, yeah. Suddenly, that prison officer's in debt. And he says no, then that guy's like, well, we'll make sure everybody knows. But I've seen it the other way. Like, when a prisoner buys drugs off someone, gets into debt and can't pay it back. I've seen it where, so say the drug dealer has a friend's got a visit, they find out the family, what car they drive, and they will go to the guy who owns debt. It's like, right, I know your wife, you've got 2 kids, and you drive this car, this is your number plate. Like, you need to sort this money out, or we can make sure that somebody's going to get hurt. Like, I've seen it all. Like,
when you were in prison, were you ever tempted by the drugs and stuff to get by, because a lot of people use it as almost an outlet because they have no other outlet in there.
Yeah. So I used to smoke loads of weed when I was at university, and there was a thing called spice, and it was meant to be it's meant to be a herbal high, or what do they call it?
It's a synthetic, isn't it?
Synthetic cannabis, yeah. And I thought, you know what, I'll just give that a go and get high for my sentence. And my cellmate was like, do not touch spice, like do not. And I'm so glad he stopped me, because I've seen so many people fall over of it. Since when I was in there, I think 7, 8 people died from it, like just smoking it, choking their own from it in nights. And it just ruins some. I've seen men come in who, you know, huge men, like physically fit, gone to spice, and I see them like 3 months later at another prison or a different wing or something, and they're just changed, they're gaunt, and they just look ill. And it's like, I'm so glad that my cellmate at that time said, no, don't do it.
You had 2 stints in prison.
Yeah.
What was it during that second stint that made you want to turn your life around?
Yeah. So the first stint, I was so focused on coming out, hitting the ground running, making money again. I worked in the city before, I was making good money, and I wanted to go and make more money and get a flat and all this. And I came out and I started my own business. I was earning good money. I ended up getting a toxic relationship, turned back to the drugs. I spent my company's money. It was about £25,000. I spent about 2 months or something.
Wow.
Yeah, just trying to be a playboy and all this. Yeah, eating out. And then debts came in and all that. Then the drugs use got bad again. So then I ended up going back to the burglary. And the second time, it was a longer stretch this time. And I was thinking, how am I in prison once again? Like, how has it all gone wrong? And it took a good year, really. I was in there for 2 years, 8 months. It was a good 9 months to a year to really just get out of this hole and like shake myself off. And I did a circuit and yoga day. So it was 8 hours of circuit training and yogas. And I was in prison. And even though my body was in prison, my mind was somewhere else. And I just felt so good after it. And that's where I met this Dr. Sarah Lewis, and just met her. And she sort of saw me as a human being, treated me like a human being. And suddenly I was like feeling really good. And I remember thinking to myself, like, where did it all go wrong? And I was thinking, it was the adventure, like being outdoors and living a life of adventure. That's where, like, I should have always stuck to that. So in that moment, I made a vow to myself to live life, as an adventure. So I came up with a motto, through adventure we live. And I thought, life is one giant adventure. So we're going to treat it like that. And suddenly this just gave me, purpose and determination. My mum used to send me paddleboarding magazines and surfing magazines. So I thought, you know what, when I come out, I'm going to attempt to paddleboard the 4 of the longest lakes in the UK and set 4 world records. And suddenly in prison, this gave me hope, it gave me drive, it gave me purpose. I met a PT inside. He put a plan together so I could work out on my cell as well as the gym. And I was talking to like other prisoners and prison officers. I told them my idea, and like so many were like, "Stop daydreaming! Like it's your second time in prison. Like you belong to the system now. You're a prison number. You'll always be a prison number." I was like, "Fuck that! No, I'm not. Like I have messed up." So I started reading these self-help books, started learning about me as an individual. Like I've gone through quite a bit in my life. I was like, I've never really taken a moment to figure out who I am. So I started learning about myself, going on this journey of self-discovery, and I'm still doing it to this day. Like I take these endurance events, I learn so much about myself, and that's what I keep doing, keep pushing. And then lockdown came, April 2020, lockdown came, I was released from prison, straight into lockdown, and I couldn't do it. But what was great, it gave me the opportunity to reconnect my family and just slow life down. And then eventually I got to do my 4 lakes and attempt these 4 world records, and I did it. And what I learned about myself in those 4 days was better than the just over 4 years that I've done in prison. Like better than any rehabilitation program, the prison system has put me on. Like what I learned was just that money couldn't buy you that. And that's what I'm trying to push now.
So these records, for people that don't know, is you completed the fastest time across the the longest lakes of Scotland, Northern Ireland, England, and Wales.
That was the first bit, yeah.
Yeah, so to do all them in 4 days, and then now, is it 7 world records you have?
So I did have 9, but somebody beat my Loch Ness one by 15 minutes. So I've got 8 now, yeah. Which is fine, but I've got 8.
But you have the most out of anyone within paddleboarding.
Yeah. In the world, yeah.
Which is insane to think, and to do it in less than 4 years.
Yeah,
is pretty crazy.
Yeah, no. So done that, the world records. Then I've started doing high altitude paddling. I've won some awards. I did the world's first completely carbon neutral, environmentally friendly expedition, and it's great. It's, a lot of what I do is to highlight the importance of reform and rehabilitation, try and change perspectives on people as well, like myself, and ultimately try and get more people to reconnect themselves through adventure. Adventure is such a powerful tool, it really is, and it doesn't have to be people from prison. It can be great for anybody. People that get stuck in a rut at work or starting to lose themselves, maybe, people that are addicted to drugs or gambling or alcohol, anything. Just getting outdoors and being around nature just does so much for you, for your mental health and your inner peace and everything. And I just want more people to do that. You don't have to go and paddleboard, 50 kilometers in the fastest time. Just go for a nice 10K walk, 5K walk, and just take it from there. And you'll be amazed at what you're actually capable of and your abilities and what you can actually achieve. And I think just start slow and take it and just find your tribe and find what you like. It doesn't have to be paddleboarding. It doesn't have to be running. Cycling, there's so many different opportunities. And even if you want to get in the water and you don't think paddleboarding is for you, then you've got kayaking and all that. You get double kayaks if you want to go with your partner or a friend or anything.
And that's what we connected about when we spoke on the phone, when obviously we first spoke, was that thing of we want to push people to get outdoors, because it's the same for me. Being outdoors, because I sort of lost that last year. I kind of just was in a cycle of go to work, come home, cook dinner, sit and watch TV. And that almost led to me being in the worst place I've ever been.
Yeah.
But then getting outdoors again and the solitude of being outdoors, spending time with your mates without distraction.
Yep.
There's nothing like it. And it doesn't have to be the hardest thing in the world. It could just be you go for a quick 5K loop, walk around the lake. It's still an incredible feeling to have done that, rather than because there is a difference. If you go for a 5K walk in the city or a 5K walk around a lake in the middle of a forest, there's definitely going to be a different feeling from the two.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you do live in London or a big city, a short train journey, you're out in the countryside, and you don't have to travel far. Say if you live in Dorset, where I live, just find the biggest hill in Dorset, go and climb that, or find some woods, or there's so many different things. There's so many great apps like Komoot, the audience survey map. They give you planned routes already. Have a little Google. There's so many routes you can find, and it is just about getting outside. And I remember I gave a talk a couple of years ago, and afterwards a lady came up to me and said, I've got a full-time job, I've got 2 children, I can't get away from adventure. And I said, take the children away on a weekend and take them camping, sleep under the stars, learn to make a fire with 2 sticks, anything like that. That is an adventure, and that's creating core memories as you for a family and those kids. And you start doing that through the summer, a couple of times in the summer, just sleeping outside under the stars. Your kids would be talking about that when they've got their own kids. I remember when Mum used to do this for us, and that's an adventure, and it's just creating memories. And I think that's what you need to do as well. And there might be places that you want to go and visit. Just go and visit. Just go and do it.
It's like the CEO of the company. What's the name of the paddleboard company?
Red.
John. So yeah, when he was talking about his kid, and he just would have him between his legs on his paddleboard, his kid's gonna remember that forever.
That's it.
His kid's not gonna remember the amount of times he sat watching TV.
Yeah.
That's not gonna be the core memory. The core memories are gonna be those times with his dad.
Yeah.
Where he was just in the middle of a lake, just having fun, having a laugh. And that's what I think people need more of, is that just being out away from distraction, where you can make those core memories, especially for families, where you can make those core memories with your kids that then set them up and help almost mold them into the person they're going to be.
And I think they will. The kids won't realise it at the time, but I think if you do those sort of things, it will mould them to that behaviour instead of sitting them in front of a TV Xbox. But I think there wouldn't be one single adult out there who would say, as a child, they didn't appreciate a certain thing that their mum or dad did for them. But as an adult, you're so grateful for that. At the time, you might have hated those 8-hour trips to go up to climb a mountain in the Lake District. But when you look back as an adult now, I'm so glad my mum and dad did that for me. or you might hate going on a paddleboard between your dad's legs or whatever. But then as an adult, like, that was great. Like, I think as a child, you don't appreciate certain things, but as a child, yeah, and as you get older, you start appreciating it and go looking back. And I'm so glad they did that for me. And I'm going to do it for my kids. And my kids are going to be angry at me, but I know when they're older, they'll be like me. It's like, it was like refuse. As a child, you don't want to go to sleep, and you refuse. But now you're older, it's like, I love sleep. Like, so great. I was an idiot when I was a child, and there's certain things my mum did for me, and I'm like, I get it now. I get it now. Yeah. These things that you did, I get as an adult. I get it.
Oh yeah, 100%. But let's get on to the Isle of Wight expedition you did, the world's first carbon neutral expedition.
Yeah.
Because at surface level, it sounds like it's like a quite an easy thing to do. Really, it's not.
No.
Also, let's give context. So this is a 58-mile around the Isle of Wight.
Yeah, we'll go 98 kilometres. Let's speak kilometres.
Okay, 98 kilometres for those who use kilometres. But yeah, so 98 kilometres. Was it 5 days?
5 days. So the reason I did it in 5 days was to show that you can survive on environmentally conscious equipment, environmentally aware equipment, net zero stuff. So I went around the Isle of Wight, and the board was 100% recycled. So everything was found in a skip. So I had a scaffolding plank, house insulation, wood they use on voting ballots, and then it was wrapped around in plastic that we upcycled. So basically this plastic they use for yachts to carry them around or ship them around, and then we use that and put it around. Then all my equipment was made from recyclables. So I had battery chargers, and it was made from wheat fibers, and then clothes were made from waterproofs were made from recycled plastic bottles, and everything was recycled. I had bamboo toothbrush, bamboo fiber underwear. Like, I literally went all out. I was eating sustainably sourced crickets and locusts.
Nice.
Yeah. And I just made sure like it was 100%, genuine. And it was hard, very hard. It really was. Like the first day, the wind was a lot stronger than I expected against me. So I didn't think as far as I wanted. The second day, I couldn't do any travel. I did 3 kilometers. The third day, I got around to the back of the island, and the waves were rolling about 4 or 5 foot. Weren't breaking, they were just rolling. And as I got a bit further down, I relaxed a bit, and a wave took me out, and the leash snapped, and I lost the board. I was about 1 kilometer off the shore, and I had to swim back to shore. And it was quite a busy beach, and not one person came up to me as I was pulling myself out of the water, looking like a drowned rat, seeing my board stranded. Not one person came up to me and was like, "You all right there, mate?" Like, nobody. I was really disappointed. Then the fourth day, put a good stint in. It was a good 50 kilometers to catch it up. Got shy of my target of cows because I had to get a ferry to go. And so I thought I'll sleep on the beach that night. And as I came onto the beach, because obviously it's all man-made. It's all made from recycled stuff. My fin had been lost. I lost my fin, which means you can't paddle the board. I would have not been able to paddle that board back to cows. It was only 5 kilometers. So I slept on the beach, rang my girlfriend because I had a support vehicle which was electronic, and she was like, "Got a problem. The vehicle's not charged." I was like, "Oh, God's sake!" So I had to sleep on the beach, which I'm glad I did. Slept in my tent, and I was thinking, I can't. This will be the first adventure I've ever done I haven't completed. And I was thinking, you know what? I've raised all the money I wanted for charity, and I've got the message out there that you can do this and you can have net zero adventures. But I was thinking, I can't give up. So I woke up in the morning. I was like, you know what? I'm going to wrap the leash around me, and I'm going to walk the last 5 kilometers in chest-deep water to complete this mission. And that's exactly what I did. I stubbed every stone along the way, which was really agonizing. The RNLI came up to me and was like, "Are you all right there, mate?" I was like, yeah. I told them what I was doing. And they're like, "Well, it's rather you than us." And I completed the challenge. Like, it wasn't how I wanted it to end, but I showed that you can have a net zero adventure. Don't make your own paddleboard out of stuff found in skips. But there are so many brands that are doing so much great work, and I didn't realize this. It was a whole educational journey for me to realize the great work brands are doing, and there's so much you can do, and you can have net zero adventures. So after that, I flew to Iceland to set the world record on their longest lake. Obviously, I've got to fly. Obviously, planes pollute. So I think, what can I do to offset my carbon footprint? So the Woodland Trust gave me 105 trees, and I planted those in a prison to create this whole green space for the lads inside to get away from that toxic environment, sit down, just chill in this nice green space.
So when you're looking at sustainability and stuff, what was it in the first place that made you become such an advocate for sustainability and, offsetting your carbon footprint?
Yeah, I remember the first ever adventure I did. I was in Scotland, and it was Loch Orr, and I remember looking on the side of the loch, and it was the woods were dense. There was no beach or anything, and I just looked at the spot on the side, and I was thinking to myself, I reckon that nobody in human history has ever stepped foot there. Like, there is no reason to stand there, and there's no beach to stand there and get through trees. It's hard. But I was thinking, I bet nobody ever has probably stood there before. And then literally a few meters along, there's a Coke bottle. I'm like, obviously somebody's thrown it in somewhere, and it's just ended up getting to there. I was like, that's just ridiculous. And the more I paddle and the different challenges I do, I've seen so much plastic everywhere. I was like, I've got to do more to try and highlight the importance of this. So that's why I took the Great Green Paddle, and that's why I did it and achieved it. And I raised money for Surfers Against Sewage. And what was really good and completely unexpected, that they made me Ocean Activist of the Year.
That's incredible, yeah. And when you're coming up with these challenges and stuff, and obviously, like you said before, you've got coming up, 33 world records is what you're attempting. So to cross the 33 largest lakes of each country in Europe.
The majority of lakes.
Majority, yeah. In 66 days, right?
Yeah.
That's a very carbon heavy task. So how logistically, when you're looking at that, how are you offsetting your carbon footprint in terms of the way you go about it, but then also what are you planning on doing to offset it afterwards?
Yeah, so obviously all the equipment I'm going to use is going to be a whole sustainable aspect to it. And we are looking to get an electric vehicle to do this, which is going to be a pain because we're going to have to charge a lot. But I'm trying to find a brand. So if there are any brands listening, obviously, who can help out. What we're going to do is to show that the infrastructure is slightly changing for electric vehicles. And it'd be great to highlight the infrastructure of Europe and show the power of a brand. So I had a little chat with Ford, who've got their new Explorer coming out, and show the power and how far yours can travel. I mean, the worst case scenario, and I have to use a vehicle with what I need, is probably going to be diesel, which I'd rather not. So I'm going to have to look at offset as much as I can do for that, which will be back to the planting the trees probably. And just going to make sure everything else that I use is going to be recycled or recyclable. Make sure my board's clean as well from every lake, because I don't want to cross-contaminate, and just do what I can do. And I just keep talking to more people and take more advice. Like, we'll have a plastic-free trip as well. There'll be no plastic allowed on this trip. And then they're just trying to look at every single thing we can do. It's going to be like the Isle of Wight, but bigger. And advice, and obviously I'm always open up to advice that people can think of other things, or, they might listen to me and think, oh no, he hasn't thought about this, or this is a stupid idea. Then I would take that on board and will help me. What can I do then? What can I change to make this, in the grand scheme of thing, a net zero adventure? If I have to use a diesel vehicle, it's not going to be a net zero adventure at that point, but I can offset that later. But, I'm open to anyone to give me suggestions and help.
Yeah. And in terms of putting these large-scale challenges together, how do you, in terms of getting sponsors on board and stuff like that, what are you doing to really push yourself out there and get these bigger brands on board who can help fund it and, maybe give you some food or pay some money towards your charity and things like that? Yeah.
Well, it's as I'm getting further into my paddleboarding career, it's just getting harder and harder and harder for me. No, sorry, it's not getting harder and harder. It's getting harder and harder because it's more money, but it's getting bigger and bigger, the challenges. And it's just got to keep putting myself out there. So this year, I've become a full-time professional paddleboarding adventurer. So I'm undertaking one challenge every month. And not only am I raising money for charities, I'm using it as a platform to just elevate myself as well. And then to try and put my message across there and just help get brands to sort of try and connect with me as well. I do a lot of public speaking, go on to podcasts like this, And it's just a lot of cold calling. LinkedIn's being fantastic. It's just trying to think of the brands I can connect with. I've got a PR team with me who are working with me for free. Ginger Agency, they've been fantastic. Put a package to me together, like, it looks great. So I send those out. Go to events like the National Outdoor Expo, and just usually the marketing director's there, and just go and meet them. And you just got to really push yourself. And like, if anyone's starting out or wants to go and do an adventure, like, you really just don't hide away. Just be cheeky. Go and ask. It's like, what's the worst that can happen? Like, they're going to say no. And some majority of times, if you're doing it for a good cause and you're doing something great, the most of the times you'll probably get something free. You know, do those. So I started funding them myself, and as I put myself out, did more, I was getting funding. I've got, you know, a full-time sponsorship now, but I still need money for the trips. But, you know, it's to a point now where I've got a nice CV that I can go and knock on doors and look, you know, I've done this, done that, I've got some awards. Can I have some money, please?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's always that bit. It's like, I'm doing all this, buddy.
Yeah, I hate asking for money. Like, I've got everything now, and I keep getting free equipment all the time, and it's great, and I love the free equipment, but it's just, I'd rather the money now instead. Yeah. Like, you know, please. Yeah. I just hate asking for money. Like,
but the way in which you speak about what you do and the way in which you go about organising things it seems like you live by this. There was this bit of advice I was given once, which was live life completely delusionally, because if you live delusionally, you'll never think you'll fail.
Yeah.
And because when we think we'll fail, we're likely to, because we get in our own heads about it. And since starting this, I've kind of done that because you have to act like you've made it in a way. Because if you don't, then it's not going to get to where you want it to be.
No, I 100% agree. All you got is always about all positive thinking. I love a no. I love somebody to say no to me. I was like, well, yeah. Not like a no. If someone, you know, I'm trying to get into a company saying no, like, no, you can't do that. I'm like, I don't know. I think I might be able to do it, and I'm going to try my hardest to do it. Like, but you know, I love it when you come up against some negativity. Like, I love that stuff. That's what gets me going. It's what I thrive upon. And even like, you know, there is delusional aspects. Like, I've done a lot of stuff that, like the high altitude paddling, people have never done before. And like, I mean, there's after doing it, there's a reason no one's ever done it before. And again, you talk to people, it's like, no, you won't be able to do that. You can't take. So I did the highest lake in Wales, and I took a paddleboard up there. It was the wrong paddleboard. I was like, okay. I couldn't take that to the ones I'd done in the Pyrenees Mountains. So I've gone and reached the companies. And like, this is amazing. This is what we designed our boards for, the brand I was working for. But then you speak to me, it was like, how are you going to do this and all that? But I just, you know, I love to crack on. Like when I was talking about, so I paddled 310 kilometers in 4 days to get here. And everybody I met along the way was like, you're not going to make it. You're not going to make it. And I made it with some good time. Like I managed to get a bath, some pizza and everything. But it's just my sheer determination, and some people might say arrogance. Like, I'm doing it. Like, yeah. And it has caused problems as well in my relationship. Like, once I've got an idea, then I can't let that idea go. And so later on in the year, I'm going to go and do the Adriatic Sea. Like, my girlfriend, if she listens to this, she wouldn't have heard the story why I came up with it. So we were in Croatia last year. We were watching the sunset on one of the islands, and it was beautiful. We're having a moment, you know. And in her mind, she's probably thinking, "Oh, this is fantastic. I'm with my boyfriend. The sun's setting." And in my mind, the sun was setting over the Adriatic, and I was looking out there. I was like, "I want to paddle that. Like, I really want to paddleboard across that." And the next day, she was having a nap. So I sent some emails out, and I got a response straight away. And somebody was like, "We will 100% fund this. We'll do this." I was like, that's fantastic. Like, I really appreciate that. And then I just got it in my mind, but I didn't tell her till about a month afterwards that I came up with the idea then, not whilst I was on holiday with her. But I'm like, I don't know what's the word. Once I got an idea, I can't let it go. And it really bothers me that I can't let it go. I just have to give it a go. And, you know, and if it slips away, like if I didn't do it, I'd always think, like with the Isle of Wight as well, I could have given up. And if my girlfriend gave up, did come and pick me up, I would be thinking, till to this day, like, how could I have done that 5K? Yeah. What else could I have done? Like, you know, you've always got to give everything your best. Keep trying until you
covered every avenue and given it your all, is the only time you can think, you know what, I did everything I possibly could do to succeed, and what I have achieved has been great. And like, just always look to the positives and always try your hardest.
Yeah. So 310 kilometers. We're at the, like, so for those who wouldn't know, we're at the National Outdoor Expo at the NEC in Birmingham, and you spoke this morning on a panel about paddleboarding. And to get here over 4 days, you did 310 kilometers, like you said.
Yeah.
Why?
So I decided as a professional, as a first year as a professional now, I thought I will do one adventure every month. I was meant to be in Fiji this month, paddling around Fiji, but my sponsor rather come to Fiji next year because it just ties in with some of the work they're doing. So I didn't have an idea of what I was going to do this month. So I was panicking. And I thought, you know what? I will paddleboard through a sustainable paddleboard journey to come and give my talk. So I live on the south coast. So I thought I will paddle to Birmingham. So I went from Chichester up to London, and I got the Grand Union Canal up to Birmingham. And it was horrible with all the locks.
So take me through that process of the 4 days. What did you pack to take with you? Where were you sleeping?
Yeah.
Did, like, you know, in terms of water, what were you doing? Like, all of it.
So I had all my ultra lightweight stuff in my car ready to go, and as you know, like, my car got broken into the night before. So all my super lightweight stuff was stolen. My tent, my sleeping bag, everything gone. All my food really deflated me. But I managed to. I've got copies of everything. Just needed the cooking stove. So I took my tent. It was a little bivvy tent. I took my sleeping bag, cooking stove, and took my supplies for 4 days. With regards to water, there's many, because it's a canal, there's loads of taps along the way. So I had 4 water bottles, and I always have electrolytes as well. So there's 4 water bottles, and I could always fill up along the way, which is great. I always wear one set of waterproof gear, or wet gear I call it, and I'd wear that for the whole trip unless I fall in, which unfortunately I did. I was trying to adjust the bag on my board so I could get my feet on either side, and I went in. But luckily I had the other gear, and then I had the gear I'm wearing today for the talk. And then obviously toiletries, and I just managed to place it all. But I think it was probably about 25 kilos. And as a paddleboarder, you're not allowed to go through the locks. You have to portage, so you have to walk around the lock. So every lock I got to, I'm misshifting this 25 kilo stuff. Then I got to take my paddleboard and then walk around the locks. So I think technically I paddleboarded 280 kilometers. And when I had to walk back to my equipment, that was where the extra 30k came from. So I'd take my equipment down to past the lock, and then I'd walk back to then go and get my paddleboard and then walk. So that was another, some of these was 500 meters. There's 1 kilometer already. And I remember getting some locks, and I'm at the top, and I can see, good, as far as the eye can see, I can see 6 locks. There's no point actually paddling in those locks. So then I had to take my bags back to the paddle and just keep doing that for every lock. It's just an absolute nightmare.
Yeah,
and like mentally, it's just it was killing me. So my friend Joe came to visit me, and like, he was struggling with the locks. He was having enough of the locks for the bit of the journey he did with me. But you just get used to it. You just get into a rhythm at the end of it, and like, the more I do these endurance events and this hard stuff, I just get into a rhythm. I just go into a zone in my head, and it all comes part of it. But just sleep, I was wild camping along the way. So I have a destination in mind, so I'll get there. Then I make sure I can find a good spot, because you're not meant to wild camp, really. So I'd wait till it was dark. It was about 1, 2 in the morning, and I make sure I'm up really at sunrise. And I'd go sort of behind the bushes in a little bit, make sure I don't leave any rubbish or anything like that. No open fires, nothing like that, and then just crack on. But I love wild camping. Absolutely love it. Yeah,
it's one of my favourite things to do. There's just something about it that, because you have to get there late, wake up early. Some of the places you can do it as well. Like, I did it in a place called Hallstatt in Austria. So Hallstatt's a little town on this massive lake.
Yeah.
And so to get to the town, you have to get a train to the station, but then from the station, you have to get a boat from the station over to the town.
Yeah.
Me and my friends, we did it when we were 18. We went interrailing, and we had like skateboards, you know, ones you'd used in the past, and they were a bit beaten up. So we took them, carved them into like mini boards, took them into so they could fit in our like big like traveling backpacks, and we skated about, I think it was 3 kilometers out of the town, and just camped on the side of the lake.
Nice.
And just right on the side of the lake, but there was like a little mound of stones where we then built a fire.
Yeah.
And just the surroundings, and
that's cool.
A campsite you're never going to get those kind of things.
Yeah.
And it's probably the same for you, where, you know, more logistically, when you're doing these long endurance events on the paddleboard, it's probably going to be near impossible wherever you end up to actually find a campsite and to stay there, when you could actually just set up on the side of the canal and get up at 5 a.m. and be off again.
I think it helps. You're not restricted to that journey. Like, you might have a campsite booked 60 kilometers away, and you might get to 60 kilometers in really good time, and you think, oh, I've got another 10 kilometers in me. It's like it's still going for a bit more. So you're not restricted to your location. And like along the canal, obviously it was lovely to wild camp, but like you say about Austria, I've been to places where I've wild camped that not many people would have ever experienced that, and you get to experience it with your mate. When I did some high altitude paddling in the Pyrenees, my good friend Jamie Ramsey and I, we paddled by this frozen lake. It was -6, but again, it was just such an amazing experience that nobody would ever experience. And some of the stuff that I've seen, like, and places I've camped, it just is unbelievable. And I just wish more people would get out there and do it.
Yeah, I think it's just everyone's too comfortable now. That's pretty much what it is everyone's too comfortable coming home, sticking the TV on, putting the feet up, and not getting themselves in these type 2 fun situations. I always joke to my mates, I'm like, type 1 fun is shit. Type 2 fun that's what I live for.
Yeah.
And you'd like, when I was doing that hike in Albania that I told you about, I had a moment where, so it was like, I hadn't done a lot of hiking, like in terms of like mountains and stuff. So I didn't pack crampons because it was only like backpacks we could take on the flight. So I was like, I'll go as far as I need to go. And if it gets rocky, like bad conditions, I'll just turn around. And I went up this trail where the snow, like it was basically on this trail, that's where the snow started. And it just got more and more, but it was soft snow, so it was fine. But as I've gone up, the sun's come out. So the sun's melted the snow, but then the sun's gone away and it's frozen over. So then when I've gone to turn around, I've fallen flat on my arse and gone towards a cliff edge.
Yeah.
And basically there was a rock towards a cliff edge that I managed to stop myself with my foot. And I just watched, so my bottle I had like an Osprey bag, so the bottle's out the side. I watched as this bottle just fell off the cliff edge and just exploded at the bottom. And I sat there and I was like, fuck, how am I going to get out of this situation? And I actually had to, for about 100 meters, smash my heels into the ice to create like a ledge, lower myself down, smash the other one in, and do that. So 100 meters took me about 20 minutes. But I called my mate on my way down, the one who was sat in the car, and I was like, that was fucking wild. And he went, are you all right? I'm like, yeah, be a cool story there. Like,
That's it,
because it's like, it's those things, like, as shit as it is in the moment, I fucking love telling that story, because it was so, like, it's so fun to look back on and be like, no one else is going to have that experience. And I luckily came out of it, but I can now tell that experience. And a lot of people, they don't have those type 2 situations to be able to go and tell those stories.
No, and as you said, I think we want more people to get out there and just go and do it. If you got an idea, just go out and do it. Like, I remember when I did the highest lake in the Pyrenees, which is the highest lake in Spain. Like, no one's ever been there. And I remember walking along. I've got a very compact paddleboard. I'm saying, talking to people, and they're off to do the highest mountain, which is right next to. I was like, I'm off to go and paddleboard the highest lake. I'm like, paddleboard the highest lake? I was like, yeah. And I was like, that's weird, isn't it? But, walking up a mountain, I was going around the lip of this glacier and everything. And it's just, it was amazing. But again, like, the glacier must have been 600, 700 meters long. I think if I slip, I'm off. I'm gone. Like, I absolutely loved it. And I remember flying my drone up there as well. And all the birds, they'd probably never seen a drone. They were trying to attack it. I was like, I best not throw it. So I brought it down straight away. So I didn't want to hurt any birds.
Yeah. River Thames, you've got the record for the crossing of the River Thames.
Yeah.
So that's 210 kilometres.
Yeah, from Lechlade to Teddington Lock. So it's the navigable, non-tidal Thames. As a paddleboarder, you can go from Teddington Lock to London Bridge, but you need a licence. And I tried to do it when I did the Thames, but the Port London Authority wouldn't allow me because I didn't really sleep
those 210 kilometers, and they said we won't allow you because the risk of death is quite high.
So yeah, it's 36 hours, right? Is that how long you were on?
That was when we did it as a tandem. I did it in 36 hours. It was my solo, yeah.
So yeah, 36 hours, and as you said there, you didn't sleep. So was that? I'm going to imagine that was probably the hardest paddleboard challenge you've done.
Yeah. Like, it was nighttime. Like, you start becoming delusional and start hallucinating about things. Like, it was hard. And I remember a point in there that I brought my board out of the water. It was probably 2 a.m. I was emotional. I was wet. So I was hungry. I nearly snapped the fin, and I just caught myself thinking, like, if I just snap this fin now and just tell the world that it accidentally snapped, I won't have to complete the challenge. And I was thinking, no, I'm not going to do that. That's how I used to think. I was always looking for the easy option to get out of things. That's what got me into trouble. I was like, just crack on. Like, I love David Goggins, and he's got this whole 40%, 60% thing mentality. So when you're ready to give up, you're only at 40%. Now you still got another 60% in your tank. And I was thinking, my body aches, but my mind's like, still got so much more I can do. I was like, let's just crack on and let's just go and do it. But it was hard, and afterwards I lost fingernails and all sorts, which I'm probably going to lose this time as well.
But yeah, when you say there about the 60%, 40%, it's interesting to see how far people can actually push themselves once you can get past the mental aspect. Because physically people can prepare as much as they want, but I feel like mentally you're never going to be able to prepare for the situation you're going to be in.
No, like, it's just a matter of stretching. So I've learned more about myself on adventures than I have in prisons. And what's great is the more I push myself mentally, I become mentally stronger. And when I come into difficulties off the water, my everyday life, I know I've got the capabilities to adjust and sort those out because of what I've done out on the water. And it's amazing. Human beings are just so capable of so much. And even if you don't think you are, trust me, you are capable. When you're put into a situation and you need to tap deep and tap into something that you don't know you have it. Everybody has it. And like, I can guarantee you, somebody who just literally might be overweight, all he does is watch TV and eat. I can guarantee you, we'll put you in a situation, you'll have it in you to push yourself beyond the capabilities that you know. And I love learning about my own capabilities and what I do. And that's why I just keep pushing myself a little bit more. Like, this paddle I've done to get here is the longest paddle I've ever done on minimal sleep. I think I burnt like 22,000 calories or something like that. And until you push yourself and learn about yourself, you're never going to know what you're fully capable of. And when you do push yourself and realize what you're capable of, that gives you so many possibilities to change things in your life. So say you've never run in your life, and you wake up one day, but I'm going to run the London Marathon. Let's just say in a year's time, you run the London Marathon. You dug deep. A marathon's hard. You dug deep. You complete that marathon. Then suddenly you're going to start thinking, well, what can I do next? But at the same time, there might be a job that you want to apply for. You might want to change jobs or change something in your everyday life. You can do that. Like, you are possible of change. And I think human beings have just got continually to learn about themselves and continue to grow as an individual. And that's what I'm doing, trying to grow as much as I can. And I think you've always got to grow and always take this journey of self-discovery.
I find myself on a pretty similar path currently in terms of, like, I started the podcast because I spent so long listening to podcasts. I was like, I'd love to ask people questions. And it became, at first it was about asking people questions and getting the people with I wanted to get the people with the biggest followings on and what have you. And then it became much more about just learning from people. And I always say, like, when people say, why do you do the podcast now? It's about learning from it. Like, I couldn't care less if this ever becomes a full-time job or not. I'll continue to do it for as long as I possibly can.
Obviously it will do after this one.
Yes, obviously. But I just love the fact that I get to learn from people who've had the craziest experiences and have been there and done it. Because, we can listen to, I could listen to you on an interview, and I've listened to you on several interviews, but there's certain questions I've asked which I know they've not asked. I wish they'd asked that. And that's the aspect of it for me which gives me that buzz, is like, that, and also putting myself in situations like just meeting random people and then sitting down with them and going into a really deep conversation pretty much straight away and stuff like that. Like I used to be a complete introvert. I used to hate meeting new people, whereas now I absolutely love it and I thrive off it because of this, and it's because it put me in those uncomfortable situations where I began to learn a bit more about myself and continuously was like, right, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? And get into that next thing and being like, okay, I've done that now. What have I learned from it? That's great, but now I can take that into this. Yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And like, yeah, I mean, I think skills are very adaptable as well. Like, you know, what I learned about myself in prison and the situations I put in, I've then put into the endurance side of my adventures I've done. And, you know, I've become such a patient person these days. So I've had to learn that, and just, well, as well as, you know, in prison, you've got to learn to be in your mind a lot, because you go into your mind, and your own personal mind is a very dark place. Like, and I do go to some dark places when I'm out paddling for those hours late into night, and these demons always come niggling back to me. But I've managed to learn the skills to shut those demons down and shut everything down and just continue to go and live a positive life, a much more meaningful life. And I wish more people can get out there and do it. And, you know, anyone listening to this, if they want to reach out to me and want some advice or help, like, please do.
So to you, what is a meaningful life?
A life where you're just happy and fulfilling your own dreams and what you want to do. Like, I think a lot of people would just think that life's about getting this whole 9 to 5, buying a house, buying a family, and just doing what the regime wants to do to you. And I know to a certain extent, the government doesn't like a lot of people. They're trying to stop people living in tents. They're trying to stop people living in vans, this whole van life. But if you're happy and you're paying your bills, and do what you want to do, like you're paying your taxes and doing everything right, I think just, if you've got an idea of how you want to live your life, then go and live your life. Like, there's nobody to stop you from living your own life and doing what you want to do. You're the only one that controls your own life. You're the only one that controls your own destiny. So don't listen to other people. And if you are people that being negative to the way you're living your life, then they're not your people. They're not part of your tribe. Then get rid of that toxicity, get rid of that negativity, and just bring in positive people that are going to elevate you in your life. That's what everybody needs. Like, you know, I love people just fulfilling their dreams and seeing them happy and doing what they do. And it breaks my heart at the same time when I see people that have the potential and they're not doing anything about it. Like, I'm working with a young lad and really trying to get him out on an adventure, and there's always a little knockback with him, but I'm like, just come on, mate, like, let's do this. So we're trying to get him to do it.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I think he's probably whatever the situation is, you know, he's got comfortable in whatever he's doing.
Yeah, he's very comfortable. That's what it is. Yeah.
But I can imagine as soon as you get him out on that first adventure, something will click for him where he's then like, oh, there's so much more. And I think that's the thing with the adventure, is the realization that A, there's so much more, and B, we're so minuscule in the grand scheme of things, and there's so much out there to see and do and try and fail at. And that's probably one of the biggest things I think that we need to do more of, is fail at things and be shit at things.
Yeah.
Because like, I'm shit at most of the things I do. Don't have the best setup for a podcast. I'm not the best editor.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to learn from that and trying to get better at it. Like I said before, I've got a 50th episode coming out tomorrow. Still don't have a proper camera for the podcast.
So it's a good setup though. I like it.
It works.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is it works. But people, like, when they go into things, they want to be the best. Like, they want to have the best equipment, and they want to have, like, you know, the best capabilities. Like with video editing, I remember years ago I wanted to try and learn it, and I opened it up and was like, oh shit, I can't do it. Whereas now, like the other night, I said I put that 40-second clip together. It took me 5 hours, but I'm happy to do that because it's now, I'm like, I really like being shit at it because I can learn from that, and I can then, when I go to do a similar thing next time, it'll be quicker, and then it'll be quicker and quicker. And again, you just learn so much from being shit at stuff.
That's it. And I think, as you said there, failure is such a powerful tool. Like, you need to fail. Like, if you never fail, then you're never going to learn. Like, as I said at the beginning of the interview, like, when I lost my job, I've never dealt with failure, and I never had the tools to fail. And then I spiraled and my life went out of control. And even though I've been to prison, that's my biggest failure in life, but I've turned that around to potentially make it my biggest success in life. Like, I haven't let it hold me back. I haven't become a victim or anything like that. I've made sure that I've turned my life around, and it fuels me.
like to never fail to that extent again, and just to keep going, keep pushing. Like, you know, where I've been in prison, my life will never get that bad, and all that's going to happen is just onwards and upwards. Like, and that's the failure. Once you fail, you got to the bottom. Like, just learn, and then go back and adapt and do it again. Just keep doing that, and you will succeed. You just got to keep going and going and going. And if you really want something, it will happen.
What would you put this positive outlook that you have on life down to? Because having been in the lowest point, lowest situation, being in prison, where there's not many options for building yourself back up, where did this come from, this whole positive outlook that you have?
I've always been slightly positive, not this positive, but I've been to prison. And like, that's the worst place you could ever go in your life. And what I've realised is it's just such a waste of time. And life is for living, that you need to just go and live your life, live your best life and be happy, man. Like, you really do. And that's what it came down to. It's like, there's so many people who are in and out of jail. There's so many people like committing the crimes and keep going in. I'm like, you're just wasting your life. You really are. Like, life is for living. There's such a big world out there. Like, I remember when I was in the Pyrenees and I was with my mate Jamie, and we're in this valley and I could hear this eagle soar. And I'm looking at the valley. We must have been about 2,000 meters up, and it was breathtaking. Like, I've taken pictures. Pictures don't justify it. And it's weird because it was just us two sitting there, and I'm like, why is this not overcrowded, this place? Like, why is there not so many people sitting here? And for those that just think it's too much hard work to get to that point, I would love to just pick them up, put them in that place, and go, look at that. Yeah. Like, how amazing is that? And then they realize, like, actually, yeah, that is amazing. Like, I need to go and do more things like this and more things. I want to see more places. Like, it's just, there's such a big world. There's so much places to see. And I live in Bournemouth, and from Bournemouth Airport, they do really cheap flights to random places in Europe. And it's like, you know, just maybe one weekend, instead of going out, get a £28 flight to Budapest for the weekend and go and see Budapest. I flew to Budapest for £8 return flight, like just after lockdown. Yeah, wasn't never been. It's £8. Why not? Let's go.
Yeah, and when I was in uni, because I used to travel a lot during uni.
Yeah,
people are like, how do you do it? Like, you know, where do you get your money from? I'm like, well, I just prioritized like saving money to go rather than going out and getting pissed all the time. Save money to go travel it. Yeah. And it'd be just, even if it was just weekend breaks in Italy or, you know, wherever, it can be anywhere.
And it doesn't cost much at all. Like, people think it costs a lot to do traveling. Like, it really doesn't. You know, obviously, if you're going to go, you know, far, like to Thailand, it's going to cost you a lot more. But Europe's on our doorstep, and this is what I love about living in England and in Europe. Like, we've got so many different cultures right on our doorstep, and to fly to these cultures, it's relatively cheap. Like, stay in hostels. Hostels are great because you get to meet local people and other people that have seen it. You get to make new friends and hang out with these people, and that's what I just love about traveling. Like with the US, for instance, they don't have different cultures. You know, to fly from Florida to, I don't know, Texas, it's, you know, it might be the same distance. I don't know the distance, but it might be same distance from England to Italy. You're in two different cultures there. Like, yeah. So I think people should need to start utilizing. And there's your first adventure. If you listen, there's your first adventure. Go on EasyJet or Ryanair today and look for your first cheap flight and go on your first little adventure.
Yeah, because like people look at it and like, oh, you know, hotels, this, that. You can get hostels pretty cheap. Flights, like, as long as you're open to flying to anywhere, you can get really cheap flights. Hostels can be cheap. Activities don't have to cost anything. You can get around for pretty cheap in Europe.
I mean, most, like, if you're in Europe, you know, museums as well are pretty much free and everything like that. Yeah. You can do it cheaply if you want to do it cheaply. There's so many possibilities.
So, for people who are looking to get that little bit more adventurous and find that side of themselves, what would you recommend as your first port of call to be?
I think just find something that you might want to do. Like, literally, you might drive past a hill, for instance, on your way to work. You never climbed it. Like, go and do it. Just go and climb it. Think of something you want to do. A place you've always wanted to visit but never visited. Like, locally, not locally, nationally, internationally, wherever. Just go and do it. There's no reason for you to hold back. If it's on your doorstep, then there's definitely no reason to go and do it. So just go and walk that place, climb that place. Like, just no excuses. Just go and do it. Like, there's no ifs, no buts. Like, just go and do it.
Nice. And one final question that I have for all my guests is, how would you like to be remembered?
Just as a man that's enjoyed life, like simple as that. You know, I've been through some shit, and he's just enjoyed life. Like when so my motto is through adventure we live. So on my gravestone, I like to see David Haze. You lived life as an adventure.
Amazing. So where can people find you? Where can they support you? What you're doing and stuff?
Yeah, so I've got a website, www.nomadicpaddler.co.uk. On all the socials, well, I say all the socials, Instagram, Twitter, Nomadic Paddler, and on LinkedIn at David Haze.
Amazing. Thanks for coming up.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.